Something's really wrong here. What's up, everyone? Oh, right. Let me fix this. Okay. There we go. That should be better. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil, Laird, and I'm here to do a special comic book review. I know how much you guys love my comic book reviews. It's not many of you. Anyway, I'm actually here to review the 4-issue Stranger Things comic book that came out in 2018. It actually just finished. Well, technically, I think it finished in 2019 because it came out, the 4th issue came out in the very first week of January. And so I'm finally able to review the whole thing for you guys. And I was tempted to review the first issue back when it came out 4 months ago, but then I'm like, no, it's only 4 issues. I'll wait and I'll review the whole thing. And honestly, guys, I'm glad I waited. I did not read this issue by issue. I waited until all 4 came out, and then I read it all in one, and I'm really glad I did. This was a really, really fun addition to the Stranger Things show, and let me explain to you why. First off, and in fact, to me, the most interesting thing is that this whole thing not only takes place in continuity, but it is straight up Will's side of the story from season 1. So if you guys have watched Stranger Things, especially season 1, then you know that early in the season, at the end of the first episode, I believe, it's been a while since I've watched it, Will Byers disappears. And that's what the crux of the mystery for the whole first season is. What happened to Will? At one point, a dead body shows up, and, you know, it freaks everyone out because they think that Will is officially dead, and Winona Ryder plays Joyce Byers, Will's mom, who is constantly searching for him and thinks she's communicating with him via Christmas lights. So all of that happened in the first season of the show that we saw. And then by the end of the first season, spoilers, for those of you that haven't finished the first season of Stranger Things, I'm going to have to spoil some stuff with this comic review. But at the end, Will does make it back, although a little bit changed. So this comic is straight up Will's story, and as evidenced by the cover of the first issue. So you see our boys that we all know and love right down here, and then you see Will up here, and being followed by the Demogorgon. And if I'm honest, the best way to portray this cover is really like this, because we all know that they're in the right side up, as it were, and Will is in the upside down. So that's what this story is all about, and it tells what happens with Will throughout the entirety of when he disappears till when he comes back. They do some time jumps, obviously, because they need to, but let me get into it here. Now, just so you guys know, first off, let me give my overall thoughts, because many of you, that may be all you want. I don't know if you guys want this spoiled for you. It's Will's story, so we know he disappears, we know he comes back, but there are some interesting things that happen in this book that you may not want spoiled for you if you are big into Stranger Things. I guarantee you, if this final issue came out in January, the trade paperback is either going to be out within a week or two, or will come out in February, so you'll be able to get your hands on it, and you'll be able to fill in the blanks yourself if you don't want to have it ruined. So my overall thoughts are this is really good. I really enjoyed this. I liked the artwork a lot. I liked the story well enough. It's not the deepest story because it's just Will kind of hiding out and trying to make his way and things like that. It is just kind of a filling in the blank thing, so it's not the deepest story. But for a big Stranger Things fan, obviously, as I am, this is something that was really cool to me. So if you're a huge Stranger Things fan, you're going to want to know the story. I'm going to go ahead and go through the 4 issues. I'm not going to go greatly in depth, but I'm going to give you the overall gist of what happens in the story, because I don't think there's anything that's a big spoiler if you have already watched the show. But yes, this comic, this trade paperback, if you get it that way, is very much worth your time and money, in my estimation. To give proper credit, though, to start off, let me give proper credit here. So as you can see, it's written by Jodie Howser, pencils by Stefano Martino, inks by Keith Champagne, and colors by Lauren Affey. Is that Affey? So there you go. That's proper credit there. Letters by Hate I'm sorry, the lighting gets thrown off when I do this. Letters by Nate Picos of Blambot. Interesting name. Cover by Alexi Bricklot. And connected back cover by Freeze. And I can actually show you guys that connected back cover. I don't know if you guys will be able to see. This is essentially the connected back cover. Let me get it towards the light. So it's the three guys and then Will's empty bike over here. That's the connected cover. So that's a really cool thing. I never actually looked at those before. I just did that for you guys. So it's pretty neat. I'm a big fan of that. I just got to be very careful. I'm so OCD about how I treat my comics, you guys, that I'm trying to be very cautious here as I go through them. So I'm going to go through the first one. But yeah, overall, I will say that the story, while thin, was satisfying and in more ways than one, which I'll get into as I go through it. But the artwork was actually really cool too. And I'll just show you a sample or two so you can see without having the whole story ruined as I go through it. But this is what the artwork looks like. Good page to start on. So that's Will, and he's in the upside down, and obviously that's the Demogorgon coming right at him. But the reason he's saying fireball, and this is part of what I really like about this series, is he still very much is applying his D&D knowledge to his situation in the upside down. So much so that I'll get into how, but they actually intercut Will in the upside down with memories that he's having of parts of D&D games that he's had with the other guys, where he is applying the lessons that he learned in that D&D game to his current situation. So I really like that. I'm trying to see here you go. There's one of those flashbacks to the D&D game where they're sort of learning a lesson. This is their avatars, and this is Will the Magnificent, I think is his name, something like that. But yeah, so basically, I'm going to go through this now, guys. That's kind of the long and short of the artwork, but we start off with Will being chased by the Demogorgon and in the upside down. He's at first not in the upside down, then he runs away, and suddenly he's in the upside down being chased by the Demogorgon. But he's got a rifle with him. I can't remember where he got the rifle. It looks like he picks it up in the comic here, just so you know. So he grabs it in the comic. I don't remember if it was actually in the show that he grabbed it, but either way, that's him, and he pops over to the upside down where the Demogorgon is coming after him, and that's where he shoots him in the next page, like I showed you. So a lot of this is Will running from the Demogorgon. That's essentially the most of the story. But that's not a bad thing for those of us that like the Demogorgon, that like Stranger Things, that like the Will story. It's all good. So what I was saying is he's sitting here trying to figure out what his next move is, and he thinks back at that point to his friends playing, D&D, and he starts applying the lessons that he learned in those gameplays to his current situation. And that's how he starts to get away from things. But what's really interesting is towards the end of this first issue, we start to see that things tie together very well. So at one point, he's wandering through the woods, and there's a big flash of light, and right on the next page, suddenly he sees a sort of astral projection of 11. Now, I don't remember this part of the show, I'll be honest with you. All the other tie-ins throughout the rest of the series I remember, but I didn't remember 11 like sort of astrally projecting herself into the upside down. She barely sees Will at the very end before she disappears, but that's it, and then Will is left to run again. But at this point, he starts hearing his name being called out. Someone's saying, Will, 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 and we don't know what's going on, and he starts to, go towards what he's hearing. He says, here, I'm right here, but he goes towards it, and he realizes, or he goes back into his house in the upside down, over here. Sorry, everything's reversed when I do this. It's a little bit weird. But this is where he goes under his bed, and he sneaks under there, and he finds what he's looking for, which is his walkie-talkie. And that's where he starts hearing his mom's voice. So when Joyce actually hears him on the walkie-talkie, that's this right here. That's Will talking to her from his side of things, that we didn't get to see in the show. And of course, the issue ends with unfortunately the Demogorgon hearing Will, and his mom is saying, Will, but now we see why he stopped talking to her. So this is a perfect example of how the comic ties into the show. It just does this the rest of the way. So every issue is all of the times that basically Joyce contacted Will, and Will sort of reaches out and things like that. And I'll get to it to show you guys because it's really cool. I really enjoyed how they did it. But again, some could consider it a little bit spoilery. So it starts off, he's being tracked by the Demogorgon, as he just was, obviously on the radio. And the Demogorgon, look at how cool this artwork is, though, you guys. I mean, I absolutely dig what they did. And they made it completely different looking than the little bit of time you spend in the real world. So they're sticking with the way the show set up the look. So Will continues to try and survive, and as he does so, he starts to see a little something. This is the point at which he also hears the phone ring, and he goes over and picks up the landline, and this is when he starts making contact via the landline. Remember how Joyce had to go back and get another phone because things happened to it? I think she broke it or something. But anyway, it's because this was actually Will on the other side from the Upside Down. So again, we're seeing the opposite end of what happened in the show. Unfortunately, it's broken up again, and this is the point at which he goes to his bedroom and starts listening to the music coming out of the boombox in his bedroom. I didn't remember this specific point either. I had a vague recollection of something happening with the radio in his bedroom, but not exactly what. And then he hides again from the Demogorgon, sort of creeping around, and he ends up falling asleep overnight. And then when he's not sure what to do, once again, we get another flashback to them playing D&D. And this is another lesson imparted that he ends up utilizing to get through the next thing. Now, something that happens that's really cool, this is a great tie-in to the show. Again, it's a little spoilery, but at one point, he's wandering around. I don't want to ruin it yet. He's wandering around, and he starts hearing someone yelling, Nancy, Nancy, and then screaming. And he's like, I think it's... What does he say right there? I missed it. I think it's this way. So he goes, and what he finds is, boom, a big empty pool with all the vines, and he goes down and he finds Barb's glasses. So he literally, this is him hearing Barb getting killed, which we didn't get to see fully in the show. We heard her say Nancy a couple of times and then get pulled away. This is her scream that she gets pulled away the last time we see her in the show. So consider, Will was in the Upside Down. We never thought that he might have actually encountered what happened with Barb. But boom, right here we see that he not only encountered it, but he finds her freaking glasses in the bottom of the pool. How awesome is that? What a great tie-in, man. So cool. And then so he goes home again, because that's the only thing he can do. And when he's walking around, he starts seeing weird things. You know, there's these weird lights everywhere, and suddenly he starts hearing his name again. And so he's looking around, and he's like, what is going on? These lights are going off every time. And so this is when she starts saying, have the lights blink once for yes and twice for no. And she says, blink once for yes and twice for no. And he actually is literally blinking on this side, but it's controlling the lights when he blinks. Right? So you see, his eyes are open, he blinks, the lights go on. His eyes are open, he blinks, the lights go on. So this is literally what's happening on the other side of the conversation with Joyce via the lights. And then he rests for a bit, and then he wakes up and he sees that his mom has set up this whole way to communicate. And so he literally starts tapping it like this. Like, this is how he was doing it. So he's just tapping the letters right here. And this has the whole conversation from the show, except told from Will's side of things. And then not only that, but see here, he starts to hear the creature coming, the skr. That's basically in the comic. That's showing that the Demogorgon is coming. And so that's when he puts in R-U-N that we saw in the show when it comes up, run. And then Joyce is attacked by the Demogorgon, sort of coming through the wall, And see here, Will runs and he's looking around and boom, he sees the back half of the Demogorgon going through the wall, going after Joyce. Not only that, but he's the one that actually throws something and distracts the Demogorgon so it leaves her alone finally. So the Demogorgon only left Joyce alone because Will threw something at it from the upside down. That's so cool to me. I freaking love that. Like, that's such a direct tie-in. I can't stand how cool that was when I read it. And before I fully get into the next issue, let me just show you real quick a good look. I showed you the first issue, but here's the look at the second issue's cover. Each issue had like 3 or 4 covers. This is the one that I ended up with. I don't mind this cover, actually. I think it's a pretty cool cover, to be honest with you. So that's my number 2. Here is my number 3. Also, an amazing cover. Look at how cool that is. Ugh. See, this artwork's really cool. This is a different artist than the actual interiors. We went through that in the first page there. But, so this one picks up, and again, Will is hiding from the Demogorgon in the Upside Down. This is just the way this story is. So if this is not deep enough, then look elsewhere. But this is a good, part of the Stranger Things lore. So at this point, he runs back to the house, and this is where he puts in "not dead," because he actually hears in the early part of this issue through the radio, I believe in his room, this is where he hears the radio talking about how they discovered Will's body. And so he freaks out and runs home, and that's when he puts in the message, "not dead." That's why he runs home and tells Joyce that he's not dead, is because he heard that news story and was like, no, 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 he started freaking out. So then it continues on, and I don't know, I'm getting pretty deep into it here, but at one point, this is where we get his side of the thing when he and his mom are talking through this sort of plasma thing in the wall. Like, there's this sort of pseudo-translucent, kind of not really window, and this is where they go back and forth, and they have this whole conversation. Oh, thank God, baby, she can see me, she can really see me. Like, this is Will's whole side of this conversation with Joyce, played by Winona Ryder. It's so awesome. Of course, he is run out by the Demogorgon and has to take off and go take solace in a pipe. And that's when he... So this is something I didn't remember from the show either, but at one point he finds another hole. I'm guessing this is when the scientists or whatever start nailing up someone boards up a hole, right? So this is Will just on the other side of that hole when it gets boarded up. I wish I knew exactly what it was, because that'd probably be a bit more impactful for me. But that's what happened there. So now we're really getting to it. And at this point, the soldiers from the scientists' side of things have gone into the Upside Down to explore, and they've mostly been tore apart by a Demogorgon. But at one point, Will happens across one of the soldiers right here. So Will did actually come across some of these guys. Like, all the stuff that happened in the Upside Down when I was watching the show, it didn't occur to me that Will might be experiencing some of these events from his side as well. I just figured Will was hiding in Castle Byers the whole time, because that's kind of all you see by the end of it. But no, he was actually really close to a lot of what was going on throughout the series. So he sticks with this guy, basically till the end, unfortunately, and then he's on the run again from the Demogorgon. Finally, we get to the towards the last part of the issue here, and in the last part of the issue, he actually hears, I believe, Nancy and Jonathan in the forest. This is the point at which they go into the Upside Down, and they run afoul of the Demogorgon, and Will hears all this going on and tries to run towards them, but by the time he gets there, and he calls out for them, they've already made it back through to the other side. He distracts, again, he takes a rock and he distracts the Demogorgon long enough to let Nancy run away. This is all you see of Nancy. You just see her barely run away and get through the portal as the Demogorgon goes the other way because of Will. So again, Will saved a lot of people's lives from the Stranger Things show that we just didn't see. He distracted the Demogorgon from getting his mom. He distracted the Demogorgon from getting Nancy. Like, he is a big use in the Upside Down. That's the end of issue 3. Finally, we get to issue 4, and that cover looks like this. Very pretty, very pretty. You even see Will there with the snake thing in his mouth, which is how they find him at the end, right? When they find him in the series. So we have to get to that point, and boom, issue 4 gets us to that point. How cool is that? So Will is on the run once again, and what he starts to do again is he starts imagining himself walking as his wizard character, walking through these fantasies. So his D&D experience is helping him get through this, so much so that he has this like full-blown little fantasy as he's going through. It's really cool and a nice, you know, sort of detour from what we've been seeing, but that's what leads to the next crossover moment. And that is this moment right here, when 11 in the pink outfit finds him and finds Will laying in Castle Byers. This moment I do know from the show. She didn't actually see him in his wizard format, I don't believe. She just sees Will, but this is what he's imagining himself to be on his side of things. So that's pretty cool too. Moving right along, Will hears the Demogorgon sort of coming, and you know, is because he sings this song to make sure that he sort of stays sane. And unfortunately, the singing draws the Demogorgon, which leads to one of my favorite pieces of art in the whole series, and that is when the Demogorgon actually, assumedly, breaks into Castle Byers because Will's singing. It runs all the way to him, and it breaks in, and what Will sees is this: a giant two-headed Demogorgon dragon. Look at that piece of artwork. How awesome is that? So that's what Will sees in his sort of fantasy in the Upside Down because he's so far gone. But that's what he sees. And then the comic cuts back and we go to the right side up and see how it's all colored differently. But this is actually another memory. This is a memory of Will and Mike talking about the fact that he's actually using... Will is talking to Mike as he's designing their next D&D game, and he's taking notes from a new book, which the new book is The Dark Tower by Stephen King, of course. Stephen King rules in Mikey's world. His name's Mikey, right? And that's where we skip forward, and we see poor Will sitting there with his worm in his mouth. While he's there, he has some really horrifying interactions with some people that are basically dead and strung up and talking to him while he's sitting there and has no way to respond. But the interesting thing about this is while Will is seeing this stuff, he has another and the first assumedly vision of the giant massive creature from Stranger Things Season 2. So they did sort of use this comic to bridge into Season 2. This is the first time Will sees this, and then after, of course, they rescue him, this is when I believe it's the sheriff and his mom find him and pull him out. That's the start of Will's issues, because you see him here being rescued and talking to his family, his mom and his brother, and everything seems okay, but then he looks over at them and boom, he sees dead versions of them. So even before the bathroom scene that we got at the end of Stranger Things Season 1, Will is having issues here and seeing dead things when he shouldn't. And the last page is that, you know, yay, the friends are here, we're all back to normal, everything's good. But this is what Will sees. So that's it, you guys. That is the 4-issue Stranger Things comic book series. Let me know in the comments down below if it looked interesting to you, if it's something you're going to end up getting. I know I kind of spoiled what happens in it, but again, it's Will's story from Season 1, so you know what happens. It's just a matter of how it gets there. And I definitely did not show you anywhere near all the pages, but hopefully enough to whet your whistle and want to go and pick it up for yourself. So I highly recommend you do so. Thank you guys very much for watching this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. As I said, let me know in the comments down below if you're interested in this and if you're going to go pick up a copy for yourself, or if you did read it, what did you think of it? Are you also excited about Stranger Things Season 3? They just started advertising that, so I thought this was an appropriate time to review the comic series as well. So let me know your thoughts on that down below. Make sure you like the video and subscribe if you haven't yet. I greatly appreciate it, you guys. Until next time, I've been Cecil Laird, and remember, stay scared.